Today we're going to discuss about our research topic, and our research topic is using analytical hierarchy process to determine internship preference among SQS students.
Yeah, so now I will give a brief about what is internship.
Internship program is a must for every university or college students to attend before they graduate. It is because internship gives them a real insight into the real working environment and allow them to apply what they have learned at university or college. Internship can be complete in a range of sectors such as marketing, management, IT, engineering, and many more to help them build a variety of soft skills including communication skill, problem solving skill, and so on. Third, internships are important to every student, including students in SQS UUM. While what is actually happening is during the stage of company selection, there are many basic criteria on which to base the decision and select the best one based on several decision alternatives. This means each student have different choice and preference for internship, and there are a lot of criteria in this society, so it is hard for them to find a suitable internship placement. Therefore, students are always seeking for advice from their friends, lecturers, coordinators, families, and others on the suitability of the selected company. In this study, we will focus on final year students who going to intern in the final semester during the final year to evaluate their internship preference on which company sector they will choose to intern based on some of the basic criteria. This study also will use AHP, which is Analytical Hierarchy Process, to determine and prioritizing SQS students' internship criteria and rank each of the decision alternative based on each of the criteria. Therefore, people can know what SQS students will prefer when the choices are given for them. These are the literature review about the application of AHP. As we know, a literature review provides us a description, summary, and critical evaluation of those work in relation to the research problem we are interested. In our study, the main literature review is 6 of these. It helps us to go through what are the theoretical framework in previous study that can be ameliorated to form a new conceptual framework or research model and collect more information about our research topic before embarking on it. Not only that, it also contributes to find the relevant research method or survey questionnaire with high reliability and validity of adaptation and so on.
This section will discuss about the model formulation. So after getting the research objective, variable identification, and also the conceptual model development, the next step of the AHP process is to construct a hierarchy of criteria. So in this hierarchy of criteria, the first layer is overall objective, and followed by the criteria, and thirdly, the third layer is alternative. So after construct the hierarchy of criteria, the next step is to collect the data by using the pairwise comparison. So to collect the data, the pairwise comparison questionnaire will be distributed to the respondent. After getting the geometric mean metric, the next step is to synthesize the metric. And after getting the synthesization of the metric, we will find out the priority vector, calculate the contingency index, and also calculate the contingency ratio. If the consistency ratio is less than 0.1, then we can proceed to the next step, which is the final step, prioritization and ranking.
In this study, semester 7 decision science students under School of Quantitative Science in UUM were as the respondent. The purpose of this study is to understand students' preference when making decisions on the internship. There are total 35 respondents of data collection through questionnaire, and the pairwise comparison result will synthesize in the Microsoft Excel. After the primary analysis data from the survey, AHP method is used as an evaluation model for ranking their decision based on several basic criteria and select the internship company they prefer to go. Then we will analyze the result in order to know what are the criteria that impact their preference and student selection when the alternatives are based on the criteria. So these are the analytic hierarchy process model structure diagram. In this structure diagram, there are 7 preference criteria including relevant job scope, reasonable wages, comfortable environment, convenient location, practical skill, chance to retain the position after graduation, and good reputation of a business, which are based on the past literature review and interview. While there are only 2 alternative attributes in this study, which are government company and private company.
The next step in AHP process is collect data by using pairwise comparison. So, in this case, there are 35 respondents from decision science semester 7 in SQS have been chosen as a respondent for this research. The data collected from these respondents are primary data. In order to get the data, a pairwise comparison question A are distributed to the respondent, and these respondents are required to choose the most preferred skill of criteria and alternative based on the preference table, which is shown in the table 2. Thus, after getting the data from the respondent, the data will be synthesized in Microsoft Excel and analyzed by using the AHP method. To construct a pairwise comparison metric, the geometric mean of all matrices have been taken from the multiple respondent data to form a geometric mean metric. Before the consistency index, the maximum eigenvalue is calculated. Then, next is to calculate the consistency of judgment metric, which is consistency index, by using the formula. The judgment metric is considered consistent when the consistency index is equals to 0. However, if consistency index is not equals to 0, that means there is an inconsistency in the metric. Therefore, consistency ratio will be calculated to determine an acceptable level of this inconsistency metric. The consistency ratio is calculated by comparing the consistency index to random index, where the random index has the value shown in the following table, and it depends on the number of criteria and alternative being compared. In this case, the degree of consistency is satisfactory if the consistency ratio is lesser than 0.1. This can be indicated that the evaluation are sufficiently consistency. On the other hand, when consistency ratio is greater than this value, which is 0.1, then the evaluation process will be repeated to improve the consistency.
This is a sample questionnaire in our study. This questionnaire consists of 3 parts, which is demographic profile, student preference on internship company based on criteria, and alternative selection of student based on criteria.
And this is the data analysis for demographic part from 35 respondents. Referring to the diagram 3, we can see that the majority of the respondents are 54.3% from Chinese, followed by 25.1% from Malay, and 20% of Indian. Diagram 4 shows the result that most of the respondents are from STBM. For diagram 5, it shows that female respondents represent the majority part in this research, which is 71%, while another 29% are male. Diagram 6 shows the student grades, and most of them are doing well in their academic, where there are more than 50% of their current CGPA is within 3.5 to 4. Referring to the diagram 7, the result shows that 74% of the respondents do not have internship experience before. On the other hand, there are only 26% of them who come from matriculation and polytechnic have completed their internship before. To analyze what are the criteria that impact the students' internship preference and their alternative selection, AHP methods is used for this research. Follow the steps as we mentioned before. This is the final result we get. As we mentioned before, one of the research objectives is to determine which factor is likely preferred during their internship. In this case, there are 7 criteria and 2 alternatives have been chosen as our variable. Table 4 shows the overall score for each of the criteria, which are relevant job scope, reasonable wages, comfortable environment, convenience location, to gain practical skill, chance to get a position after graduation, and lastly, good reputation of a business. Since the consistency index is not equal to 0, therefore, contingency ratio is calculated to check the inconsistency level, and the result shows that it is lesser than 0.1. And next is to rank the criteria. Based on the result in the table 4, it can say that gaining practical skill is one of the most important criteria will be considered by the student other than reasonable wages and convenience location. Since the overall score for these 3 criteria are relatively higher than the other criteria, therefore, we rank the criteria starting from to gain practical skill as number 1, wages as number 2, and convenient location as number 3, and so on. Next is the result for overall score for each of the alternative based on the 7 criteria. As we mentioned before, there are 2 alternatives for this research, which are government company and private company. In this case, the consistency index is equal to 0. This means that the pairwise comparison metric for each of the alternatives based on each of the criteria are perfectly consistent. Therefore, the next step is to rank the alternative. Table 5 shows the overall score and ranking for each of the alternative. The total score for private company is relatively higher than government company. Table 6 shows the result for total score for each of the alternative based on each of the criteria. We can see that the total score for convenience location, good reputation of a business, and to gain practical skill are the 3 highest score of the criteria among the other criteria. This can be indicated that the students are more likely to choose private company compared to government company during their internship program due to convenience location, reputation of a business, and to gain practical skill as well. In the conclusion, our research objective is to prioritizing the students' criteria and rank each of the decision alternative based on each of the criteria by applying analytical hierarchy process method. Based on the result we obtained shows that among the 7 criteria, practical skill is the most important criteria considered by the students and followed by reasonable wages and convenience location. The overall score for each of the alternative under each of the criteria attribute, we can conclude that SQS students are more likely to choose private company than government company due to convenience location, to gain practical skill, and good reputation of a business. These are the criteria that considered by SQS students on private company as their choice to intern. Lastly, we can say that AHP method can be applied to other college in UUM or other university or even other college as well. This framework provides references for students in choosing internship placement based on these criteria.
Okay, that's all from us. Thanks for watching.